Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. Well, 14 weeks of the high school football season have come and gone. We've had 9 regular season weeks, 5 weeks of the state tournament. It seems like only yesterday that we were talking about the preview for the season, but here we are, state finals weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. And we're going to get new champions crowned. We've got at least 3 classes that will see a new champion. We've also got 3 teams that could defend their title as well, with Lutheran, Andrean, as well as Center Grove. It's going to be an outstanding weekend of football. I can't wait to get into it, man. It's going to be such a good weekend.
I know, it's always such a great thing, a great tradition for the 2 days following Thanksgiving. I mean, if you're in downtown Indianapolis on Friday evening, it is just one of the most electrical atmospheres you can possibly find, between the high school football state championships, the lighting of the Christmas tree down on Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and always the Pacers have a home game at the same time. So it's just an awesome atmosphere, crowning state champions. As a former state champion myself in a different sport, I know what it means to be able to hold up that state trophy above your head and have that blue medal and ribbon placed around your neck. It's a feeling unlike any other, so it's going to be really exciting.
Oh yeah, it really is. So I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, B. Scott, we've had a couple of weeks off. How have you been, man? Let's get some updates. I know Purdue. So Purdue beats Illinois. Are they now in a good shape to potentially win the Big Ten West, or do they still need some help on the final weekend?
So Purdue is, as long as they beat Indiana, they will be co-Big Ten West champions. However, due to tiebreakers and everything, they need Nebraska to beat Iowa this weekend in order to go to Indianapolis. However, if you are a football fan at all, if I'm Purdue, I am just going to beat Indiana and take that co-championship and run with it, and avoid having to go to Lucas Oil Stadium to be led to slaughter to either Ohio State or Michigan, honestly. So I'm okay if they don't. It'd be fun if they end up down at Lucas Oil, but at the same time, it's going to be just a-okay if they get through Indiana, get that co-division championship, and move on to their bowl game.
Retain the bucket. That's all.
Retain the bucket at this point.
Well, some other games that are going on at Lucas Oil this weekend, before we get to the Big Ten Championship, are obviously the 6 games ahead of us on Friday and Saturday. It'll all get started on Friday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll get the 2A State Championship, Andrean versus Evansville Mater Dei, a rematch of last season. Then following that game at approximately 3 Eastern, probably a little later than that, you'll get 4A New Prairie versus East Central. At 7 o'clock, the nightcap 6A Championship, Carroll Fort Wayne versus Center Grove. I really kind of wish that
they would go back to the old scheduling.
Was that when they would do it in order? Or...
Yeah, back when the last game on Saturday night was the 6A game. Because I remember going to that almost every year. We would go all day Saturday and watch 4A, 5A, and 6A, and it was some great football. But I'm not a big fan of this kind of shaking it up, because you like, if you are just a casual fan, you lose track. You're like, wait, who's playing? It's so random.
Well, that and no, I mean, I am very excited. All these games, when we get into our predictions, they're all coin flips for me. A lot of them are. Because if there was a team that I thought was a little bit of a disadvantage, they had an epic semi-state win, so now I'm kind of like, I don't know, can they finish it off? So, not to take anything away from, Valpo and Whiteland, but I think I'm more excited for Center Grove Carroll, and I wish that was the game finishing off. And look, I'm advocating for all of you guys, 4, 5, and 6A to play on Saturday, because that, I think, would be a lot more exciting.
Well, actually, it used to all just be on Saturday, and then they added another class.
Well, no, they couldn't have had all 5.
Oh no. They had 4
of the 5, maybe.
I think they had 4 of the 5. They played 1A on Friday night, because I remember going and watching Bishop Chatard and Roncalli play just some epic battles. There. But yeah, it was the nightcap was always maybe they played 2 of the 5 on Friday, and then the remaining 3, because there was a good gap in between where you could leave the RCA Dome. Yeah, that's how far back it goes. The RCA Dome, and grab some dinner downtown, and then head back
Yeah, because
for the last game.
6A is relatively like a relatively recent development. It's not
Yeah, and
necessarily.
the 6A class 6A is relatively small, which is why they start sectional play a week later than everybody else.
Right. Well, on Saturday, it'll get kicked off with the 1A state championship, Adams Central versus Lutheran, another rematch from last season. Then at 3 o'clock, we'll get Bishop Chatard against Lawrenceburg, and then the nightcap will be 5A, 7 Eastern, 5A Valparaiso versus Whiteland. So what we're going to do with our previews here, we're going to start with Friday. We're going to go in order, Cron Pod here. And we're going to give our player to watch, our key to the game. B. Scott and I will give both of those, and then we'll go ahead and get into our predictions after that. So let's go ahead and get right into Friday morning with our 2A preview. You've got the number 5 in 2A, Andrean 59ers. They're 10-3 against number 6 Evansville Mater Dei. The Wildcats, they're 11-3. It's a rematch of last season's 2A title game in which Andrean won 21-9 over Mater Dei. Drake Bowen in that game was unreal. He had 24 rushes for 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. The defense allowed just 9 points, blocked punt. That was Drake Bowen as well. They also had a blocked field goal, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Obviously, Andrean going for their second straight title. Evansville Mater Dei looking for their first title since 2000. Looking at Andrean's path to Lucas Oil in the sectional semis, they defeated number 2 LaVille 28-6. I actually in our sectional preview said that was a game they were potentially going to lose, so they proved me wrong there. Sectional championship game, they defeated Bremen 56-13. In the regional, they defeated Lafayette Central Catholic, the number 9 team in 2A, 30-12, and then finally last week in semi-state they defeated number 12 Fort Wayne Lures 48-29. For Evansville Mater Dei, their path to Lucas Oil. In the sectional opener, they defeated number 10 Prairie Central 35-6. In the sectional semifinals, they defeated Tell City 49-21. In the sectional championship, they defeated number 15 North Posey 35-0. In the regional, they defeated number 4 Triton Central 35-28. And in the semi-state, they defeated number 1 Linton Stockton 51-28. So a lot of big wins for Evansville Mater Dei along the run there. Player to watch. My player to watch is going to be Andrean running back, outside linebacker Drake Bowen. We've talked about him a lot in our preseason preview when we talked about 2A. Both of our picks for the state championship in 2A was Andrean, and I mean he was a big difference maker for Andrean in last year's state final. I mean, we talked about his impact offensively. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 6 tackles, 3 of which for loss, including a sack. He forced a fumble, blocked a punt. He was a literal one-man wrecking crew in last year's 2A state final, and he's a big reason why the 59ers ended up getting the title. This season, in the regular season, he had 738 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 100-yard games, 1 200-yard games, but in the postseason, he has really come alive. He's got 951 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns. He's had 4 100-plus yard games, 3 200-yard games. In the semi-state win over Lures, he had 358 yards and 5 touchdowns, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks in that game. I mean, he has been an absolute monster through this state championship run. He's reached another level. He's another big game away from propelling Andrean to another state final. So if Andrean wants to win, they need another big game from Drake Bowen. But I think what can keep Mater Dei in this game, and I think what gives Mater Dei a real fighting chance, my key to the game, is the rushing attack of Evansville Mater Dei. Both squads are top 40 defensively in the state. Mater Dei is 4th in 2A, allowing 14 points per game. Andrean is 6th in the class, allowing 15 points per game. So both teams have strong defenses, meaning the offense that steps up and can move the ball well will be the team that hoists the trophy. On the season, Mater Dei averages 30 points per game, 3 games scoring 30-plus or more during the regular season. They averaged 118 rushing yards during the regular season. But in the postseason, much like Drake Bowen, that rushing attack for Mater Dei has come alive. They're averaging 41 points per game, averaging 167 yards on the ground. Their leading rusher, Joey Pierre, has had 3 straight 100-plus yard games going into semi-state. 0 on the season. He had 5 regular season touchdowns. He had five this postseason heading into the game against Linton Stockton. Which, I mean, I thought Linton Stockton. I did my semi-state tier list. Linton Stockton was a banner raiser for me in 5A. I didn't think a team was going to beat them, and the fact that Evansville Mater Dei absolutely beat the bricks off of Linton Stockton in the postseason means a lot. And I think if they want to go blow for blow with Andrean, they need to have the rushing attack keep up with Drake Bowen. Last season, going into the state final, they averaged 130 plus yards per game on the ground, and Andrean held them to 80. So if they want to stay in this game, potentially get the win, I think Evansville Mater Dei needs to have a big game on the ground.
Yeah, so for me, the player I'm looking at is somebody that's going to help Evansville Mater Dei try to stop Drake Bowen, and that is junior Aiden Shue. For Mater Dei, he leads the team with 119 tackles, including 6 for a loss this season. If Mater Dei wants to have a shot of slowing down Drake Bowen, look for Aiden Shue to have a big game in that regard. So for me, the key for Mater Dei, like I just said, is slow down Drake Bowen. Look, he is the best player in the state, hands down. Notre Dame's recruiting him, everything. So it's going to be a tall task to stop him. But if you can get into a shootout and force them to get out of their comfort zone and away from running the ball, you have a shot. And that just it takes a few stops. And Aiden Shue is the player that can help them do that. So my key is slow Drake Bowen down and then go ahead and just run your offense. Do what you have done this postseason. It worked against Linton Stockton. Continue doing that moving forward.
Yeah, so as far as getting into the predictions, for who we think is going to win 2A, it's really easy to go in and just fade last year's result and just be like, oh, well, these are 2 really good programs. Andrean got them last year. They're going to get the revenge game this year. But I really think it is going to be Evansville Mater Dei. I've thought Andrean would lose to LaVille, so that makes me leery of going against them again. It's one of those things where I've kind of faded them the entire postseason run, and they've just really surprised me through the entirety of that run. They have had an impressive but Mater Dei's run through the postseason has been equally impressive. Especially the way they took care of number 1 Linton Stockton. They have had 3 wins this postseason against the AP top 10 in 2A. Their offense is clicking at the right time. Talked about, they only had 3 30-point games through the regular season. They've scored 35 or more in all 5 playoff games. Their 51 versus Linton Stockton was their season high for points scored on the season. The previous high was in the sectional semifinal versus Tell City. They're undefeated for when rushing for 170 plus yards this season, and their postseason average is 167, like we said earlier. It's close. You can kind of flip a coin and make a prediction here, but I'm gonna go ahead and fade last season's result. I think Evansville Mater Dei gets it done and gets the revenge against Andrean.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be Evansville Mater Dei. Look, they're led by head coach Mike Goebel, who's in his 26th season with that program. Mike Goebel is a legend at Mater Dei, whether it be with football. He hasn't had the same success at football as he's had at wrestling. Trust me, I've been on the other side of the mat from a Mike Goebel-led team a couple times, and they were no joke. So he's a winner. And I think he gets another state title, their first, I believe, since 2000.
Yeah.
So that will be good. And I got Evansville Mater Dei bringing home what class was this?
2A.
See, it's so confusing. 2A, the 2A state championship. There's so many classes. It's especially confusing considering we wrestled Evansville Mater Dei a lot for state championships. There is no class.
I was gonna say it's kind
of, at least when I wrestled, there wasn't any classes for wrestling.
It's kind of like what conference realignment has done to college football. You're like, wait, in wrestling, Oklahoma State's in the Big Ten? What? It's so
Missouri was in the MAC last year.
Right, exactly. Like, wait a minute, what? So
And now
yeah.
Missouri has gone back to the Big 12 for wrestling. Yeah, it's so confusing.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to 4A, which is one of those games where we are guaranteed to get a new champion. New Prairie, they're the number 6 team in 4A. They're 13-1. They've never won a state championship, and you've also got the team they're going to go up against, number 4 East Central, the Trojans. They're 12-2. They haven't won since 2017, so they're looking to get a state championship as well. New Prairie's path to Lucas Oil, their sectional opener was a win over Kankakee Valley, 47-6. They also defeated Lowell in the sectional semifinals, 42-6. And in the sectional championship game, they defeated Trey Gibson and Hobart with a 49-28 win. In the regional, they defeated Northridge 55-7, and then in the semi-state, probably their most impressive win of the postseason, they defeated number 7 Kokomo 10-9. East Central's path to Lucas Oil. In the sectional opener, they defeated Edgewood 53-0. In semifinals, they defeated Silver Creek 42-6. And then in the sectional championship game, one of their impressive, the start of their impressive final 3 games, they defeated a good Martinsville team, number 14 in 4A, 47-0. In the regional, they defeated number 11 Evansville Memorial 35-21, and in the semi-state, they defeated number 2 Indianapolis Roncalli 24-21 in an insane overtime game. It was a game in which East Central blocks Roncalli's attempt at the game-winning field goal. As the clock was winding down in that one, then they force a fumble in overtime to kick their own game-winning field goal. So what an insane game that was. As far as my player to watch, he's a guy who's, a 3C Media Player of the Week. He's just an insane runner.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
nuts.
Yeah, the kind of numbers he's put up. I mean, we've been on the Luke Hansen hype train for a long time. As far as he's our running back on the All 3C Media team. But Josh Ringer has made his case for why he should be on that list as well. I mean, he became East Central's single season leader for points scored this season. He's 5th in the state in rushing with 2,197 yards, second behind Luke Hansen, from Ron Colley. So in that game, in the 4A semi-state, you had two of the best runners in the state in that ball game. He's got 35 rushing touchdowns on the season. He has a 300-yard game, a 200-yard game. That came in the sectional championship versus Martinsville. He's had 12 games of 100-plus yards, 11 multi-touchdown games, 6 games of 3-plus touchdowns, 3 games of 4-plus touchdowns, 2 games of 5-plus touchdowns, and a 6-touchdown game versus South Dearborn earned him 3C Media Player of the Week honors. He had 788 yards, 14 touchdowns. During this postseason, he's averaging 158 yards per game, 3-touchdown average. He's the key to East Central's offense. That is 4th in 4A, 35th in the state. So East Central has really come alive this season, and a lot of that is because of running back Josh Ringer.
So my player, I'm actually going to go with players to watch. You'll understand here in a second. But I'm going with a couple of players from New Prairie. Look, they run a power spread offense that is led by senior running back Noah Mungia. He's rushed for 1,868 yards and 21 touchdowns. But it's not just him. It's a two-headed monster with junior quarterback Marshall Kamesic. He has 1,331 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. Now, you might be thinking, okay, yeah, they run a power spread offense, but typically if you're going to spread out, you got to throw the ball a little bit too. Yeah, Kamesic they don't throw the ball a lot. However, he is a big passing play threat. He is currently averaging more than 22 yards per completion. And this season, he's got 1,198 yards passing and 16 touchdowns. So look, this offense can move the ball, and it can move the ball in big chunks in a hurry. There's a lot for a defense to have to think about. So I'm really watching running back Noah Mungia and quarterback Marshall Kamesic. If I said his name right, I don't know.
Well, and I mean, you talked about some defenses. That is going to be something to watch. I mean, that's an offense that can, that needs to go tit for tat with East Central and Josh Ringer. But you mentioned the defenses, and that's what I've got as my key to the game. New Prairie's defense, specifically against the run, trying to slow down Josh Ringer. New Prairie and East Central are actually tied for second defensively in 4A, allowing 11 points per game. The Cougars shut down Kokomo last week, the second best offense in 4A. They held the Wildcats to 149 rushing yards, their lowest output of the season. The only game Kokomo failed to get 200 yards this season on the ground. The offense for New Prairie has been popping off for their 5 highest scoring games have come this postseason, so that offense is clicking at the right time. They proved they can do just enough in a defensive struggle to get the job done. So that almost, I mean, you talk about their impressive games, on the season. Oh, they're scoring all these points this postseason. Really, that's the most impressive in my eyes is the fact that, because I like to talk about when in these games, if you got a, kind of a glaring difference between the offense and defense. So you've got like a really good offense versus a really good defense. I usually just kind of reverse that and say, okay, well, that's the key to the game. What can the other sides of the ball for those two teams do? And the fact that they were able to get into kind of a knockout, drag out defensive struggle and still do enough offensively really shows what they're able to do. So yeah, I think the defense for New Prairie is really going to have to step up big, because their offense can do just enough. So their defense really has to slow down the offense for East Central. And if they can slow down Josh Ringer, I think the Cougars really have a shot in this game.
Yeah, I'm going kind of the same direction, except I'm saying the defense. I'm saying the defense of New Prairie as well. It's going to be a challenge to stop Josh Ringer. I mean, look, when you look at running backs, you go 1,000-yard season is the mile marker. That's what you want to hit. That's when you know you've had a good season. I mean, he's got well over 2,000 rushing yards. That's insane. But I like the defense. I like New Prairie to be able to attempt to slow him down, especially when you have a senior linebacker roaming the field that's leading your team in tackles with 130 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 interceptions, and Tavion Ortman. I feel like that's kind of can be a potential difference makers when you have that kind of experience and leadership roaming there at the mid level, especially when you're going up against a big time rusher and in Josh Ringer. So my key to the game is, the New Prairie defense really needs to be honed in and ready to attack at the line of scrimmage to make sure Josh Ringer, he's going to get his. He's going to get it. You just got to be prepared for that. Don't let that get you down. Do not, and just keep moving forward. Come back out there. Next drive, it's a brand new drive. Go out there, play your hardest, get your stops, and get off the field. But don't get down if he breaks one, or if he puts a long, prolonged drive together. Just don't get down. Just keep looking forward constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be up to that Cougar defense to kind of dictate this game, because if if this East Central offense gets cooking early, especially, I mean, the defense is good as well for the Trojans. So if they, get up a couple of scores early, it could spell disaster for that New Prairie, shot at winning this title. But as far as predictions go, I am going to go with East Central. Give me the Trojans. Both teams are pretty evenly matched statistically, but I think if this becomes a knockout, drag-out defensive struggle, the Trojans have more firepower than what Kokomo had. They do still have quarterback Cole Burton, who is 8th in 4A in passing, 1,700 yards, 22 touchdowns. Wide receiver Ryan Brotherton is 9th in 4A with receiving as far as receiving yards go, 841 yards, 11 touchdowns. All that plus the impressive run they've had this season, running through the ranked teams they've run through in the tournament. The bounces they got versus Roncalli, I mean, it just kind of is one of those things that just kind of signifies that it's their year. The fact, I mean, 3 straight weeks for 14 Martinsville, Evansville Memorial, Roncalli. I mean, the teams that they've beaten en route to the championship just makes me think that this is their year. So I'm going with the Trojans.
I'm actually going with New Prairie. Look, their head coach, Casey McKim, was a student manager under Joe Tiller at Purdue. Back when I was at Purdue, so not too old. But he took full advantage of that time as a student manager and learned the spread offense pretty well. That's what Joe Tiller was known for. Spread it out, except they're not flinging it around quite as much. But look, this is a type of offense you don't typically see at the high school level, where they're going to spread it out on you and then also try to attack you with power running. I mean, this is something you just have to be prepared at pretty much all three levels of your defense for this. And I think it's going to be a little confusing, and it's going to allow New Prairie to jump out to a quick lead um, before East Central is able to kind of get a foothold of what is going on exactly. So I like New Prairie because of that style of offense that they run and how unique it is to the high school level.
Hey, I'm all for it. We're clashing already on our state finals picks, so we'll see who comes out on top. We're both in on Modern Day, both I'm on East Central, you're on New Prairie. And I mean, like I said, a lot of these games are toss-ups, because of what they've been able to do. I mean, because like I said, I mean, I can't remember if I had New Prairie in my dark horse or if I had them as in my like bottom tier, which was like nice run, but your weekend, your season's over basically. And because I thought Kokomo was going to win. I had Kokomo, in a pretty good position. I didn't think either of them was going to be a match for East Central. But what they were able to do, against Kokomo in the semi-state, super impressive. Looking at 6A now, the nightcap. On Friday, you've got number 5 Carroll of Fort Wayne, the Chargers. They're 13-0, looking for their first ever state championship. They're going against number 4 Center Grove, the Trojans, 11-2, looking for their third straight championship. So a premier David versus Goliath type matchup. You've got although Carroll's had a really good season. They're not necessarily your prototypical, David, but still, their path to Lucas Oil. They defeated number 10 Penn 35-7 in the sectional semis. They beat Warsaw 34-17, the 13th team in 6A in the sectional championship. In the regional, they defeated number 13 Lafayette Jeff 21-20, and which I mean Lafayette Jeff, they robbed us of a Crown Point Carroll matchup because that would have been really good. But hats off to Lafayette Jeff, what they were able to do, the Fighting Nick Yeomans. And then in the semi-state, they defeated number 1 Hamilton Southeastern 21-15, a team that, I mean, you looked at their resume through the season. The Royals,
I thought they were going.
Yeah,
I thought they were Lucas Oil bound.
Yeah, Hamilton Southeastern, I mean, their resume they put up was insane. Beating Westfield twice, beating Fishers twice. So to be able to knock that team off was pretty impressive. Center Grove's path to Lucas Oil in the sectional semifinals, they defeated Franklin Central 14-10. In the sectional championship game, they defeated Columbus North 49-14. In the regional, they defeated number 12 Warren Central 42-32, and then their most impressive win, maybe of the season. Do we want to go that far?
They've already played. They played Cathedral already this
but
season.
Their most impressive win though, they lost. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. They defeated number 2 Indianapolis Cathedral 33-10. So even if it's not maybe the most impressive win, it's the I would say most impressive just because they won by 23. I mean, that's pretty. Insane to think.
I mean, I thought Cathedral. I thought it was going to be Hamilton Southeastern versus Cathedral.
Same.
In 6A.
And so what a run by Center Grove. Of course, I had Cathedral as a dark horse as far as like my semi-state teams, and of course, a lot of people coming into the live on Friday letting me know that I was wrong about Center Grove. Which, hey, I'll happily admit that Center Grove. I mean, you looked at Center Grove's resume and you were like, Franklin Central. They struggled with Franklin Central, who was under 500, 3-7 on the season. They struggled with Columbus. Well, they didn't struggle with Columbus North, but that win isn't super impressive. They finished under 500. Warren Central was 500 this year, so they didn't have the resume going into semi-state where you're like, okay, this is a team that's gonna really contend again for a championship. But here they are yet again. As far as looking at a player to watch, I'm actually going to go to the defensive side of the football here. I'm going to say Center Grove Jr. Elijah Chandler. And the reason is, both teams have a top 10 passer. Both teams have a top 10 rusher. Both teams have a top 10 receiver in 6A. So I think the defense is really going to have to come into play here, especially for Center Grove, because one thing the Trojans were lacking in my eyes going into semi-state weekend was a top caliber defense. Every other defense in 6A that was remaining was in the top 6 or top 10 in the class, top 6 really. They held Cathedral, the 6th best offense in 6A, to just 10 points, so the defense stepped up in a big way. A big part of that was Elijah Chandler. I mean, he had 5 tackles, 2.5 sacks, which, believe it or not, was only tied for the team lead in the game as far as sacks go. Chandler is the 3rd leading tackler on the team. He leads the team in sacks. This is a team in Center Grove that had big shoes to fill when Caden Curry left for Ohio State, and Chandler has stepped up in a big way. So I think he's going to have another big game for Center Grove to notch another title.
So for me, when I look at this game, the player I'm watching the most is Center Grove junior quarterback Tyler Cherry. He's got on this season 2,124 passing yards and 21 touchdowns. The reason I say him is because this Carroll defense is a really stellar defense. I mean, they're only allowing 9.8 points per game. That's really impressive. If Center Grove, we all know Center Grove can score. We do know that, but it's going to be a challenge against this Carroll team. And I need to see some poise and good leadership out of Tyler Cherry in order for Center Grove to be able to pull this off.
As far as a key to the game, I think my key for this 6A championship game is that Carroll needs to slow down the Center Grove offense, more specifically the rushing tandem of Micah Coyle and Jalen Thomason. Coyle on the season, he's got 1,941 yards, 21 touchdowns. Thomason, 954 yards, 9 touchdowns on the season. In wins, they average 240 yards and 26. They've had 26 touchdowns in those wins. In losses, they average 125 yards. They've had 4 total touchdowns in those games. The Trojans also are 2-2 overall when rushing for 150 yards or fewer. The Chargers are the second best defense in 2A as far as points allowed, 10th in the state, allowing just under 10 points per game. They held Hamilton Southeastern to under 20 points for just the second time all season. First time since opening weekend. The Royals averaged 30-plus points per game on the season. They also had an interception, a blocked punt. Hamilton Southeastern running back Jalen Alexander, who's second behind Coyle in the class in rushing with 1,500 yards, did leave the game with 4:13 to play in the first half on Friday due to injury. But prior to that, he had been held to just 25 yards on 10 carries. So they were holding him in pretty good they were holding him pretty well up to that point before he had to leave due to injury. So it's not like he was having this insane first half and got hurt. He was being held pretty much in check. So if Carroll wants to get their first state championship and knock off the Goliath in Center Grove, they're going to need the defense to really shut down that rushing attack of Center Grove.
I've already kind of mentioned it once, but my key to the game is the Center Grove offense. Look, you need to play poised, play your style of football, stay within your game plan. And just like I've said a lot of other ones, if you make a mistake, just forget it. Move on from the mistake. You need to have a short-term memory when it comes to those types of things. Look, you've been here before. This is your 4th straight trip to Lucas Oil Stadium. You know what the atmosphere is going to be like. That you're looking for your 3rd straight state championship. Just play within your means. Do what you do best, and if you make a mistake, it's fine. Forget about it. Move on. But on the flip side of that, you need to limit the mistakes. Just because you made a mistake and you're able to move on doesn't mean you can go out and make another mistake. You need to limit the mistakes, play smart football, and just play within your game plan.
And I'm glad that you bring that up because I don't think there's a team better equipped to kind of, forget about it and move on than the team that's literally made the state finals the last 4 years. Literally the class of 2023 football, for Center Grove doesn't know what it's like to not finish their season at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is pretty insane. So as far as my prediction goes, I'm going to give the edge to Center Grove just for the simple fact that it is their 4th straight trip to Lucas Oil. I mean, these two teams do have a lot of similarities. You have Carroll quarterback Jimmy Sullivan, who's 5th in 6A in passing with 2,200 yards, 27 touchdowns. Center Grove quarterback Tyler Cherry, you mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's 7th with 2,124 yards and 21 touchdowns. Michael Coyle leads 6A in rushing for Center Grove with 1,941 yards and 21 TDs. Nathan Starks is 7th with 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Noah Coy is 2nd second in 6A in receiving for the Trojans with over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. Camden Hirschberger is ninth for the Chargers with 737 yards and 7 touchdowns. Carroll is seventh defensively. Center Grove is coming off their best defensive game of the season. Because there's so many similarities, because this game for me is a coin flip, I have to go with the team that does have the experience. It's Carroll's first trip to Lucas Oil. Are they, how loose are they going to play? How tense are they going to be when they do, like you said, make that mistake? Because Center Grove, business as usual. Like I said, they're used to finishing their season at Lucas Oil Stadium. So, they have a screw up early on in the game. They're like, all right, cool, we've been here before. We've literally blown out. We blew out Westfield 2 years ago. We won a barn burner versus Westfield, a year ago. So we literally, kind of have been in a lot of situations here at Lucas Oil Stadium. So we know how to make those adjustments. How well will Carroll do in those same situations? I don't have nearly as much faith as I do in Center Grove. So, it is, and also in the climate-controlled fast track at Lucas Oil for that Center Grove offense. So, yeah, I think the Trojans do come away with the 3.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is Center Grove. It all comes back to experience. Carroll is going to be, it's going to be a bright lights, big stage moment for them. Can they handle it? Yeah, they can handle it. But it is a little different when you are playing down there because Center Grove packs the place. They travel very, very well. Look, Lucas Oil Stadium is really on the south side of Indianapolis, so it's a little bit closer to Center Grove in that regards. Obviously it's closer to Center Grove than Fort Wayne Carroll, yeah. but I think the experience will help overcome things here. The Carroll defense is good. We know that, but it's going to be a challenge for them. And Center Grove, it's just business as usual for them, and that's going to be a tough thing to overcome. So I'm going Center Grove as well.
All right, well, there you have it. We both have Center Grove. We both have Evansville Mater Dei. The only game we differ on, B. Scott has New Prairie in the 4A. I have East Central in the 4A. So before we get to Saturday's games, though, let's go ahead and hear from our friends of the show. First of all, from Anchor. The Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Look no further than Anchor.fm. Anchor allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or mobile device and will distribute it to other sites such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. On a budget, not only is Anchor completely free of charge, but will allow you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Anchor is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Also, the Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Eat Lunch and Board Game, heard weekly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be heard. Board games build bridges. So now we're on to Saturday, and the odd-numbered classes will get a chance at the championship here on Thanksgiving weekend. It'll start with 1A. You've got number 1, Lutheran, the Indianapolis Lutheran Saints. They're 14-0, looking to repeat their championship. They're going to take on the number 2 Adams Central Jets, who, like our other rematch, are looking for their first state championship since 2000. So like Mater Dei, they're looking for their first title here in about 22 years or so. The Jets are also 14-0. Lutheran is the only team ranked number 1 in the state in their respective class to make the state finals, which is pretty insane.
That is.
Yeah. And it's also the only number 1 versus number 2 matchup as well. It is a rematch of last season's 1A title game in which Lutheran won 34-28 over Adams Central. So looking at Lutheran's path to Lucas Oil, you had the sectional opener where they defeated number 10 South Putnam 42-0. In sectional semifinals, they defeated Cloverdale 63-0. Sectional championship, they defeated number 11 Covenant Christian 56-0. In the regional, they defeated number 12 Providence 49-7. And in the semi-state, they defeated number 3 North Decatur 28-7. For Adams Central, their path to Lucas Oil in the sectional opener, they defeated number 14 Southwood 56-14. In the semifinals, they defeated number 9 South Adams. Both our picks to win the state in 1A. They beat them 55-20. In the sectional championship, they defeated Northfield 41-13. In the regional, they defeated number 8 Carroll, Florida 35-0, and in the semi-state, they defeated number 4 North Judson 35-0. So, looking at a player to watch, I've talked about him quite a bit. He's our 1A, or not our 1A, but our overall 3C Media quarterback. He's the quarterback on the All 3C Media team, and that is Lutheran quarterback Jackson Willis. I mean, he's top 15 in passing yards in the country. He's the top passer in the state, best quarterback rating among the top 50 passers in Indiana. He's got 3,890 yards, 51 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, 6 games of 300-plus yards passing, 8 games with 4-plus touchdowns, 3 5-touchdown games, a 6-touchdown game versus Cascade. He leads the state's top-scoring offense, averaging 50 points per game. He also, is distributing it to 3 of 1A's top 10 receivers. And Micah McKay, who's got 1,403 yards, 16 touchdowns. Brian Shelby, who's got 863 yards and 14 touchdowns, and Devon Jones, who's got 800 yards and 11 touchdowns on the season. So he's really spread it around. Gotten into a lot of his playmakers out there who have put up a lot of points. And this is just his sophomore year, which is also, insane to think about. So, I mean, he's become the facilitator on the state's top offense, and if Lutheran wants to go back-to-back, he'll have to have another big game. So, looking out for Jackson Willis in this game. We had a lot of good quarterback performances last year, Brady Allen and the like, Montesee Clay for Lutheran. So Jackson Willis wants to put his name on the state finals.
So I am actually gonna say my player to watch is the guy that's going to be tasked with trying to stop Jackson Willis, and that is Adam. That is Adams Central junior linebacker Keegan Bloom. Look, this Adams Central team is defensive led. I mean, they can put up points. They're third in margin of victory at 35.9 points. It's going to be tough for them regardless. But they have 6 starters back on defense this year from the state runner-up team last year. That is led by Keegan Bloom. He is a linebacker. I'm one of those people that believe that if your defense is going to be solid and you're going to have a good defense, you need to have that leader at linebacker. I think any successful defense has that guy that is almost like the quarterback of the defense, and the best position for that player to play is linebacker typically. So I'm going to keep my eye on Keegan Bloom to see if he can help lead his defensive squad to attempting to slow down Lutheran, that's also going to be my key to the game as well. I'll just go ahead and jump in. Is that okay if I jump in and get my key?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to continue. Mine is the Adams Central defense. Just you play aggressive, but don't play overly. Don't play on your heels. Don't be playing to prevent a big play. Go after them, attack them. Play a just hard style defense. Play your defense that you've played this year. Rely on your experience. Look, you are returning 6 starters from your defense that started last year as a state runner-up. So you know what it takes. You played a close game against Lutheran last year in the state championship game. So build on that and take that confidence and go right at them. Don't play scared. Don't play on your heels. Yes, Jackson Willis is going to get his as well, but don't let that deter you from looking at your ultimate goal.
Yeah, and you talked about the defense for Adams Central. They do have a good defense, and that's kind of goes into my key to the game, which is Luther needs to start fast. They were held without a point in the first quarter versus North Gator in the semi-state. They only had 7 points at halftime. It was a 7-7 tie. They led 14-7 after the third. They only had pulled away from North Gator in the fourth with a pair of touchdowns. The 28 points was tied for their lowest output on the season. Lutheran in last year's state final did fall behind 14-0 and 21-7 to Adams Central in the state final. It took a big game from quarterback Montese Clay to give Lutheran the lead and ultimately the title. Adams Central has the 12th best defense in the state in terms of points allowed, 10 points allowed per game, fourth in 1A. They've allowed 8 or fewer points in 8 games this season, including 3 shutouts. They have back-to-back shutouts in the regional and semi-state rounds. They haven't allowed a point in the tournament since the sectional championship. It should be noted that their offense can keep up with Lutherans. They average 46 points per game on the season, second in 1A behind Lutheran. 44 this postseason is what their average is. They've scored 40-plus in 11 of 14 games this season, 5 games of scoring 50 or more. So this offense is good enough to compete with Lutheran. So, Adams Central was in prime position to win the state final last season, and if Lutheran has another slow start, it could spell disaster for the Saints. But ultimately, as far as my prediction goes, I am going to go with Lutheran. I just like the firepower that the Saints have. When we talked about their passing game, their 3 great receivers, Jackson Willis. We also can talk about their running back. Joe Davis has all the while talk about their passing game. Their running back has 1,769 yards and 28 touchdowns. So that offense is just insane. We talked about the defense for Adams Central. Lutheran has a good one in their own right. Actually, statistically better than the Jets by a few decimal points, which all rounds up to, again, 10 points allowed per game. So the Saints have the better offense, defense, and quarterback, and so that's why I'm leaning for them to win back-to-back titles.
Yeah, I'm going with Lutheran as well. I just feel like their offensive attack is just it's going to prevail. I
think we're looking at a better offensive performance from them than last year. I think their offense is going to put up a lot of points.
Yeah, Montese Clay was a good quarterback, but I feel like what we're seeing now from Jackson Willis, he's only a sophomore, guys. So it's going to be a wild ride over the next 2 years with him, and I could see him really blowing up, big time. Hopefully, it's tough playing in 1A because you do get overlooked a lot in recruiting because of the level of competition you were playing, but numbers don't lie. If you're able to still put up those types of numbers where you're the 15th best passer in the entire country, that says something. So it's so hard to overcome when you have a really good quarterback at the high school level and he can really sling it around and his wide receivers are good as well. That's a really tough thing to overcome at the high school level. So that's why I'm going Lutheran.
Yeah, I've always I understand the discrepancy between classes. Like when you say oh well, I understand why a guy at 1A might be overlooked as opposed to a guy in 5 or 6A. But if it were true that because you still got to go out and do it. You still have to go out and put up those numbers. And it's why then isn't every quarterback in the state that's the top 15 or 10? Why aren't they all in 1A? To that same focus, there are the top 2 passers are from 1A, Cooper Simmons Little and Willis. But at the same time, it's not the top 20 are flooded with all 1A guys.
Right.
So it's still like I said, I get it, but at the same time, it shouldn't mean that and I know you're not saying this, but it shouldn't mean that what he's doing should mean anything less because it's at 1A.
Oh, I know. Yeah, exactly. I think if he was up there in 4A, 5A, or 6A, it would be a name that's on everybody's radar. Now he's only a sophomore, so he's not even really he's probably on radars, but he's not on a national scale radar because look, he's only a sophomore. He's not even rated yet. Sophomores aren't even rated by these recruiting rankings yet, especially unless you're gonna definitely be a top 5 guy. But again, those guys are only the ones that are playing at the highest level. Look, a guy like Brady Allen last year, he was in 3A, and prior, I think, to his junior season, he was heavily overlooked on the national level, which is what allowed Purdue to swoop in there and get him out of Southern Indiana. So these types of players, they fly under the radar longer because for some reason these college coaches look at him and go, yeah, he put up those great numbers, but when you're throwing to guys that or that are playing both ways at that level. You see that quite a bit at the 1A level. I mean, you've called quite a few 1A games,
Yeah.
and it sometimes you get these schools out there that they barely have enough guys on the roster to even field a team, and they're having to play both ways. So that's why sometimes these guys get overlooked. But I do think a player like Jackson Willis, if he is up there in one of the higher classes and he's slinging it around, say at a school like, I don't know, like what's this, like Carmel or Center Grove or Cathedral, look, that guy's being looked at like he's got Nick Saban sitting in the stands then. But this is a type of player that's going to fly under the radar, and he's going to ultimately end up somewhere probably more local than anything. This could be a guy that ends up at a Purdue, at a Ball State type player. I mean, if he blows up eventually, it could, Notre Dame even. But it is unfortunate. So that's long story short. It's unfortunate that a player coming out of 1A gets labeled as, well, your competition just wasn't that good. It's like, still, numbers don't lie.
51 touchdowns,
he's a good quarterback.
Less than almost 4,000 yards, 51 touchdowns, and less than 10 picks.
He has to be accurate. He has to have good zip on the ball to be able to put up those kinds of numbers.
Right.
I mean, you can teach reading coverages and everything, but because guess what? There's not that many coverages played in high school football. There just isn't, especially in Indiana. Let's just be honest.
Right.
So numbers don't lie.
So moving on to 3A, you've got number 6 Bishop Chatard, the Trojans. They're 10-4. They're looking to win 2 championships in the last 4 years. Their last championship was 2020. And then you've got their opponent, the number 9 Lawrenceburg Tigers. They're 13-1. They're looking for their first title since the 1970s. Chatard's path to Lucas Oil in the sectional opener, they defeated Northwestern 47-19. In the sectional semis, they defeated Hamilton Heights 41-14. In the sectional championship, they defeated number 12 Guerin Catholic 49-13, a team that they had only beaten by 1 in the regular season. In the regional, they defeated Yorktown 42-14. Semi-state, they defeated number 1 West Lafayette 21-3. Lawrenceburg's path to Lucas Oil, it was kind of funny because they got matched up with South Dearborn, who they beat 35-6. That was a team they beat in the regular season finale as well. So they had to play South Dearborn 2 weeks in a row, which is pretty interesting. Which I was saying on the live, I was like, I mean, I know it's not that deep. It's high school football, but like, do you not show all of your looks offensively and defensively because it's the team that you're playing in the first round of the sectional? How do you game plan? But in the sectional semifinals, they defeated Greensburg 28-0. In the sectional championship, they defeated Batesville 33-7. In the regional, they defeated number 10 Southridge 31-7. In the semi-state, they defeated Monrovia 35-7. So, looking at my player to watch, I am going to stick with Lawrenceburg, that amazing defense that they have, and I'm going to go with Lawrenceburg middle linebacker Jake Pierce. The Tigers boast the top defense in the state, allowing just 6 points per game, and Jake Pierce is a big part of that unit. He's the team leader in tackles with 114. He averages 8 tackles per game. He's the 5th. He's got 5 games with 10-plus tackles, 8 tackles in the semi-state win over Monrovia. He has 2 sacks on the season. He's the team leader in interceptions with 4. He also has 2 pick sixes. He's got 2 fumble recoveries. He's got a blocked punt on the season. He's just been all over the field for that defense that is the best in the state. He has just been an absolute monster, a big leader on that Lawrenceburg defense that has been good all year, and he'll be a key factor in the Tigers' recipe for victory. Jake Pierce is going to have a big game.
So just so you are aware, Bishop Chatard is the all-time state championship leader with 15, and they are looking to win the 3A title for the 3rd time in 4 years.
Okay.
All right. So along those same lines, my player to watch. You talked about the Lawrenceburg defense. There's no doubt the Lawrenceburg defense is really, really good. So with that in mind, I am going with Bishop Chatard senior quarterback Drew Van Vliet. He's got 2,732 yards passing and 28 touchdowns. Yeah, it's not impressive. It's not like wow, it's not Jackson Willis uh, type numbers, but I'm calling him my player to watch because if Chatard wants the opportunity to claim that third title in 4 years, they need to play solid football on offense. And that starts with the game facilitation by senior quarterback Drew Van Vliet. If he can just take over his offense, run it the way he knows how to run it, and keep his guys calm, cool, collected, and just move the ball methodically, that gives Chatard a chance to win this game. So I'm watching him and his leadership. It's more so about his senior leadership than it is about any stats or anything. You need your senior quarterback, your senior leader to step up at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes right along with my key to the game because points will be at a premium. So whichever offense does get it going, is going to be in good position. I mean, we talked about Lawrenceburg and how good they are on defense. They're the best in the state in class. Chatard has only allowed an average of 13 points this postseason, which is down from their season average. On the season, they were allowing about 20. On the postseason, they've kind of cut that in half a little bit, allowing 13 points per game. They held a top 5 3A offense in West Lafayette to just 3 points last week. And so looking at their offenses, Chatard averaged 32 points per game on the season. They're averaging 40 this postseason. They have 3 games of 40-plus points in the regular season. They have had 4 during this state tournament run. Lawrenceburg averages 35 points per game on the season. They have 2 of 3A's top 15 rushers in Tegan Bennett, who's got 1,410 yards, 18 touchdowns, and Alex Whittle, who's got 1,201 yards and 18 touchdowns. Chatard is playing their best defense this postseason, is coming off their best defensive effort this season. Lawrenceburg has hands down the best defense in the state, so it will be up to one of these two offenses to get it going, and the team that does get it going offensively will win the state title.
My key to the game is whoever is limit the mistakes. I keep going back to mistakes, but this is that time of year where, now you are going up against somebody, the best so far. And my key, it doesn't pertain to one team or the other. It's really both teams. I think the team that can limit their mistakes is going to be the one that ultimately comes out on top of this game. I'm gonna instead of because my key to the game is for both teams. I'm gonna give you a hot take. My hot take is the team that wins this state championship game will score a touchdown on defense.
Yeah,
points will be hard to come by, so you have to get them where you can. And I could see a defensive touchdown being what leads one of these two teams to the state championship.
And honestly, with as good as these two defenses can be, I don't think that's too much of a hot take at all. I mean, we talked about Jake Pierce. I mean, 2 pick sixes on the season, so we know they can do it. Chatard has already played in Lucas Oil once this season. Opening weekend is against Brebeuf, and I know they blocked a kick. I don't know if they got a defensive touchdown in that game, but I mean, it is possible. Both these defenses are that tenacious to where they can force a turnover and get a score that way. So I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. Getting into my prediction, I mean, it's one of those things where, like I said, I doubted Chatard, last week. So the fact that they put up a really good performance against a team that I thought was going to win the state championship in West Lafayette, because I was already, excited to see, what's this West Lafayette offense going to do against the best defense in the state. And Chatard really shut them down. And I've doubted them a lot, but the thing with Chatard is one reason why I'm not going with Chatard is because in every big game they've had this season, they've just kind of not been there. I mean, opening week they beat Brebeuf, but we found out that Brebeuf wasn't necessarily the team we thought they were going to be this season. Against Indianapolis Roncalli, they lost. That was a big game. Now, granted, Chatard plays a lot of their games, above their class, so they don't play a lot of 3A teams in the regular season. But when they get into state championship game, it's all their class, whereas they've been playing 4A, 5A, and 6A teams. They've gotten they got blown out 38-0 to Cathedral. So I mean, I know that's a 6A school, but I mean, this team is playing above their class. It's not like they in those big games where they can kind of prove like this is why we're the best team in 3A. They kind of laid an egg in those games. So that's why I am a little bit still hesitant to pick them, because hey, you had this really tough, impressive schedule, but you went 5-4. So while through the state tournament, I don't they didn't get the best team in their sectional. Oak Hill got bounced early. They Yorktown, I don't, definitely had a great run, but I don't think that's the best competition they could have faced in the regional. I'm not taking anything away from them. We're not trying to, but I think that's why I'm a little hesitant to go with them as my pick. I am going to go with Lawrenceburg, because, I just like what the Tigers are really about. They allowed 38 points to another state finalist, East Central, on opening night. Since then, they've allowed 47 points total the entire rest of the season. They haven't allowed more than 7 points in a game since September 2nd. They have only allowed more than 8 points in a game twice. They have recorded 7 shutouts on the season, including one this postseason. They had a stretch of 6 straight games from September 9th to October 14th. An entire month went by. They did not allow a point to be scored against their defense. Having 2 elite runners like Tegan Bennett and Alex Whittle, and having the defense that they have, I just think Lawrenceburg will be able to control the tempo, control the game, be able to run it a lot. They'll be for some 3-and-outs defensively, and so that's why I think they're going to be your 3A champ. I'm going with Lawrenceburg.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was on the fence. I wanted. You know what? No, I'm gonna. Somebody's got to do it. So I'm gonna pick Chatard. Look, this like I said, this program is the state leader in state championships won. So
and for a reason, they've been good.
For a reason.
Yeah.
They've been really, really good, but at the same time, they know how to turn it on at the right time. Like they realize, look, the regular season in Indiana high school football does not matter. It does not matter. Yeah, you would like to win your conference. Of course you would. That's great. Bragging rights. But when push comes to shove, everybody makes the state tournament. That is when you need to have it turned on. And Chatard gets that. It's evident by their state leading 15 football state championships. So I'm going to go with Chatard just because my heart wants to pick Chatard to see them extend that state leading state championship total to 16.
Yeah, and I mean it's very possible. Again, all these games.
And also, if you've ever driven by Chatard, it's not very big for a 3A school. It's not very big. And look, I feel like the only reason why they're 3A is because they're so good. They keep getting bumped up because of the competition rule that if you win so much, you have to make the next step. Same thing with Cathedral. Cathedral's not really a 6A school population size, but they're just that good.
So finally, we wrap it up with 5A. They're the nightcap on Saturday. They will finish the high school football season for the year. You've got number 9, the Valparaiso Vikings. They're 10-3. They haven't won a state championship since 1975. You've got number 2, Whiteland, the Warriors. They're 12-1, who have never won a state championship. Valparaiso
in any sport.
Any sport. Yeah, which is insane. You've got Valparaiso's path to Lucas Oil in the semifinals. They defeated LaPorte 42-3. The sectional championship, they defeated number 12 Chesterton 14-7. In the regional, they defeated number 6 Maryville 15-14. And then in an overtime thriller, the second overtime of the night, in the semi-state round, they defeated number 1 Fort Wayne Snyder 22-21. It was a 4th and 8. They score on that play to make it 20-21 in the overtime, then go for 2. They run it just right up the gut. They say, hey, just stop us, bro. I mean, if you want to go to the state championship, you just got to stop us. And Fort Wayne didn't stop them. They ran right up the middle, got the touchdown, and they're headed to Lucas Oil. Whiteland's path to Lucas Oil, they defeated Terre Haute North 63-13. In the sectional championship, they defeated number 8 Franklin 24-0. And in the regional, they defeated Plainfield 49-14, and they defeated number 13 Castle 21-7 in the semi-state. So, looking at the player to watch for me, I'm going to stay defensively. I'm going to go with Whiteland free safety Brady Stanifer. He had 14 tackles, 3 for loss, a pass deflection in the semi-state win over Castle. He's ninth in 5A in tackles on the season with 115. He's the team leader in that category. He averages 9 tackles per game. He's got 3 fumble recoveries, which leads the team. Whiteland's got a defense that is third in 5A, allowing 13 points per game. They're a top 30 defense in Indiana, and Stanifer is a key cog in that powerful defensive unit. He and defensive end Mason Darlington are both really good. They're the leaders of that defense. Darlington is a team leader in sacks with 5. He's also got a fumble recovery on the season. So, again, it's kind of that thing where Valpo's got a really potent rushing attack, so it's going to be up to the defense, and I think Brady Stanifer is going to stand out in this game for Whiteland.
So this is also going to be one of those strength versus strength type games. You have Valpo's defense that is allowing just under 100 rushing yards per game, and then you have Whiteland's offense that is one of the state's top rushing teams that's averaging like 304 yards rushing per game. So it's strength versus strength. So because of that, I'm looking at Valpo again. This is just going to be a theme here. Senior linebacker Alex Rodriguez, and yeah, he has 82 tackles on the season and 4 tackles for loss, but senior linebacker yet again. Look, this defense that has been very impressive against the run has experienced linebackers. Not only Alex Rodriguez, but junior linebacker Ty Veen. He has 63 tackles, 10 tackles for loss. That's really impressive. So these linebackers are the real deal for this Valpo defense. And it's going to take a big game from them to try to shut down one of the top rushing offenses in the entire state.
Yeah. It is gonna be pretty pretty big. A key to the game for me is going to be Valpo's rushing attack. They've got 305 rushing yards against the top defense in 5A in Fort Wayne Snyder. Travis Davis II had 43 rushes for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had the game-winning 2-point conversion. They have 3 rushers on the season with 750 plus yards. Justin Clark with 950, Travis Davis with 863, and Thomas Berta with 769. 2 of their top 5 highest rushing outputs this season haven't happened this postseason. The game against Fort Wayne Snyder, as well as their 403 against LaPorte. They're 8-0 when rushing for 200-plus yards. They're 2-3 when failing to cross the 200 rushing yard threshold. So if that rushing attack can get it going against another top defense in 5A, Vikings may come out on top. I mean, that rushing attack is really key for the Vikings to try to win the state championship. And so if they can get it going, they'll be in good shape. If not, it could be a long night.
So my key is very similar. It's between both teams. Who can establish the run the best? Both of these teams like to run. Both of these teams are really good at it. But really, if you look at it, Whiteland, they have to come out and establish their run dominance early because they are going up against a really good rushing defense in Chatard. Like I've already talked about, strength versus strength. So the key is here, and ultimately who could win this game, is who can establish the run first. The secondary key would be who can pass the ball the best if need be. Because if somebody can establish the run and then sprinkle in there some passes, that's going to have to keep a defense honest. That's another thing to really keep an eye on. Now, both of these teams don't seem to be all that reliant on a pass but who can, do it the best? Obviously, when you look at Whiteland, they do have senior quarterback Kevin Denham, who has thrown for over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. So that's going to be a big key. Can he step up if need be to make a few big pass plays to really put that pressure off or take the pressure or push the pressure back on the Chatard defense? That Chatard defense is one of the better rush defenses, like I've said. So can Whiteland kind of alleviate that pressure by making some plays in the passing game?
So we're going to wrap it up here with our prediction for the 5A championship. Who is going to take it home? Will it be Whiteland? Will it be Valparaiso? And you know what? I really want to pick Valpo. I mean, the resume over the course of the postseason is more impressive. I like the guts they showed against Fort Wayne Schneider. I mean, it's kind of crazy because in back-to-back live streams, of course, we didn't do the regional. I was out of town. So in the sectional championship game, you had Yorktown and Norwell. Norwell goes for 2. They don't get it. So you're like, okay, you're kind of you go through that debate. Okay, you know what, state tournament chances on the line. You're in overtime. Your team's gassed. Do you go for 2 if you score the touchdown? Field goals aren't always super reliable in high school. You go for the extra point. So you see it not pan out for a team. And then the next week, 2 weeks later, you see a team in basically the same scenario. They show a lot of guts. They go for 2, and they get it. So, I kind of want to go with Valpo because of that reason. The guts they showed is insane. Ultimately, though, I like Whiteland. They're 4th best offensively in 5A with 35 points per game to go along with the 3rd best defense in the class, allowing 13 points per game. They've scored 40 points and have allowed just 6 points on the postseason run they've had. So the offense has been better. The defense has been playing phenomenally. They've held their opponents to 7 or fewer points in 3 of 4 tournament games. They had 2 such games in the regular season. We talked about their defensive standouts. They also have running back Peyton Emberton, who's 3rd in 5A in rushing with nearly 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. So they've got the rushers to go toe-to-toe with Valpo. Plus, they're just better statistically on all fronts. So with as much as I want to go with Valpo and pick the kind of the story, the team that we didn't necessarily expect to be here, again, a team that I had in the bottom tier of my semi-state tier list that ends up winning their semi-state round. As much as I want to go with them, I'm going to go with Whiteland.
Yeah, I'm going with Whiteland as well. I mean, that rushing offense is, come on, averaging 304 yards per game. And then you also have a quarterback that can throw it if it's necessary. And also, I'm going with Whiteland because I want to see them. I want to see that excitement that they show when they are crowned state champions for the first time in any sport in school history. Those are the cool moments. I mean, we've seen that. I've seen that before, like a couple years ago in the College World Series when Mississippi State won a national championship and was the first national championship in any sport for the Bulldogs. So I love stories like that. I love seeing those types of things. So yeah, I'm going Whiteland.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be really cool to see, and it's going to be a fantastic weekend of football, like we mentioned. And you know what? There you have it. We've got, our picks for the state championship. We've broken down every matchup. B. Scott and I are picking the same on all games except for 3A and 4A. You go New Prairie and Chatard. I'm going with Lawrenceburg. Central, the rest of the way we're the same. Center Grove, we've got Lutheran, we've got Evansville Mater Dei, we've got Whiteland. So it's going to be a fantastic Friday and Saturday of football. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Remember that you can follow us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. Go like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go over to the TikTok channel. We will be live on Friday and Saturday for both games of the state championship. So we'll be live for 5A. We'll be live for 6A. So come on over, say hi, enjoy the game with us. Also, go over to the YouTube channel if you're not already there. If you're listening to us on the podcast app, go to the YouTube channel. We've got some great content over there, as well as we approach 150 subscribers on the app. So go subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the bell, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. You can find me on Twitter, as long as Twitter's still up, at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott,
better be, or I'm out of a job.
Oh yeah, B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
We'll continue the football conversation next week. We'll be getting into some college football, something we were going to talk about a couple of weeks ago before the craziness that the Colts threw upon us. But until then, have a good week, everybody. Enjoy the state championships.